Hi, this is Kerwin and Keith of Father Son Galaxy. Our guest is author, screenwriter, and director Marc Bernardin. In 2019, Marc wrote an article for Entertainment Weekly called Oscar Me T'Challa to celebrate Black Panther receiving 7 Academy Award nominations. Now, Marc is co-writer and co-executive producer of Eyes of Wakanda, a 4-part animated series released on Disney Plus on August 1st. Marc, welcome back to Father Son Galaxy.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations on Eyes of Wakanda.
Thanks. It's been a long time coming. I started working on that show in 2021, I think. In the middle of lockdowns and pandemics and social unrest and everything. It was, hey, do you want to go to Wakanda? Yes, I would like to spend a few months in Wakanda. It is much better than spending it here in the real world.
Yeah. Speaking of which, how did you go from writing a Black Panther to writing a Black Panther series?
Um, I wish I could tell you exactly how, because so many of those dots get connected on the side that I don't get to see, which is, my representatives, my managers or my agents will call and say, hey, do you want to have a meeting with X? I will almost always say yes, because there's nothing to be gained by saying no. So sure, I'll have a meeting. I'll talk to anybody. And then one day they're like, hey, Marvel wants to have a talk. Do you want to meet with Marvel? Of course I want to meet with Marvel. Who doesn't want to meet with Marvel? But I didn't know what it was about. They don't tell you anything. The secrecy is high. But I got on a Zoom with ended up being with Todd Harris, and it was talking about doing a show set in Wakanda. I didn't have any other context for it at all beyond we're thinking about doing a show set in Wakanda. Are you interested? And the answer was yes, because the answer is always yes.
Can you talk about the decision made from the producers to feature the War Dogs as the central characters in Eyes of Wakanda?
I think that Todd Harris, again, he was a storyboard artist. He worked on Black Panther 1 and 2 and the John Wick movies, and he's a kind of an in-house Marvel guy, but had just been doing kind of action-adventure cinema for a while, pitched the idea to Kevin Feige as, what if we show Wakanda throughout history? What if we show the ways in which it collided with the outside world, and in those ways had also been secret to the rest of the global history? And once that was the idea, the logical conclusion was, if we don't know that it was Wakanda, then those agents must have been secret. And if these agents are secret, Wakanda's already got a kind of secret agent sort of organism inside of it. They've got the Hattusarazi. Then we meet, the first person we meet in Black Panther 1 is a war dog, who is out in the real world in secret. And so to marry those two ideas, doing an anthology over time through history plus secrecy felt like the war dogs were always going to be our way in.
Marc, during your development of the show, did you have to meet or speak with Ryan Coogler at all to get his impression or ideas of what he wanted for Eyes of Wakanda?
Ryan was sort of in constant communication from afar, because Ryan was also shooting Black Panther 2 while we were in development on this. And so I have no idea what it's like to make a Black Panther movie. I imagine it is all-encompassing to keep those 98, balls in the air at all times. But we always had the Proximity Media, which is Ryan's production company, was very hands-on in the process, and there would always be a representative of Proximity in the writer's room to help us be kind of the Ryan whisperer. Like, what do we think Ryan is going to like? What do we think Ryan's going to want? These are people who have known Ryan since, like, film school, who know him very, very well. We did get him once. We got him once. He was on a break in shooting, and we had already been writing scripts, and he'd read it. He'd been reading everything and giving notes on everything. But I guess he just had a morning. It was like, I'm going to drop in the room. And it was great because I mean, Ryan is he's an idea generator. He is just a lightning rod for that stuff. And so getting to have him in the room, getting to pitch him stories, getting to hear firsthand what he liked and didn't like, having him pitch us ideas, like it was great. I understand why we couldn't have it all the time, but the little time we had it was incredibly valuable.
How'd you feel when you saw Ryan Coogler appear on your Zoom screen?
I mean, it's the craziest thing though was that he popped up. It's like, oh, hey, Ryan. He's like, oh man, Mark, I know y'all like your podcast. I was like, shut up, Ryan.
How about that?
You silver-tongued devil, just flattering me out the gate.
Yeah, you never know who's watching.
You never know who's watching, But I mean, Black Panther was, the first Black Panther was a phenomenon in almost every way,
Yeah.
and we covered it almost as much as a podcast could cover a single movie. And so it didn't surprise me that some of that penetrated the wall of secrecy around which Ryan would have to build for himself. Like, I got to keep the outside world away. I got to make these movies. I got to live a life on the other side of those movies. But every now and again, something pierces that veil, and it was nice to hear that he, at the very least, had some familiarity with the podcast.
So we did mention that Eyes of Wakanda was released on Disney Plus on August 1st. So it's a couple of weeks since the release, at the time of this recording. So I hope you're okay with having some spoilers, talking a little bit about the episodes.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to spend most of the time talking about your two episodes. You wrote 2 of the 4 episodes, but of course, I want to just give props to Jeffrey Thorne, who wrote the other 2 episodes. So he wrote episode 1 called The Lion's Den, where Noni, a former Dora Milaje, is tasked to find a high-ranking Wakandan official who disappeared with dozens of vibranium artifacts. And that starts off the chain of reaction to the other episodes. And then let's talk about your 2 episodes, the ones you wrote, 2 and 3. The first one is Legends and Lies, which tells the story of Achilles and the Trojan War. How did you form the idea of bringing Wakanda into Greek mythology?
Well, I'll tell you, this was, if I remember correctly, the only story that survived Todd's initial pitch. Was because when I got there, it was like, hey, so we know we want to tell these stories over time. We know we want to be able to kind of drop into history and follow these stories. I think the one that he came with was like, yeah, I want to do the Trojan War. And I want to do Memnon, who, according to Homer, was a king of Ethiopia who kind of gets embroiled in the Trojan War. That was the only one that was like, we're definitely doing this. Everything else, to a certain degree, is up for debate, but we want to do this. And so knowing that this was, not to say like a fixed point in space, but knowing that there was already love for this idea, let us really kind of get under the hood of it and decide for ourselves, what is this story? What does it mean? What does it mean for a Wakandan to be out in the world for like 9 years? Why is he out for 9 years? And we the Trojan War went on for a while. And like, yeah, no, there's a bauble in there that Memnon has to get that happens to be around the neck of Helen of Troy. It is not as simple as just walking in and taking it. And so he allied himself with Achilles, the greatest hero of legend. Like, that guy's going to get in there. If I can just be with that dude, when he gets in there, I can get what I need. Nobody knew it was going to take as long as it took. But just figuring out the emotional core of what this story was going to be, because if there's no emotions, then it just doesn't work. Then it's just fighty, which is lovely. I like a good fighty, but why do we as an audience care about the fighty? And so it was building that relationship between Achilles and Memnon, and deciding for ourselves this was going to be a tragedy, and if it's a tragedy, then there needs to be real connection between these two people. There needs to be betrayal. And without a real affinity for each other, you don't get betrayal. You just get like buddies. Oh man, sorry.
Yeah. You're right. It definitely becomes a Greek tragedy, and you did, like you said, focus on the heart of the story, and the heart of the story is the relationship between Achilles and Memnon. Um, who two warriors are there for two different reasons, but
Hmm.
Achilles, maybe in his naivete, he's thinking that okay, well, the two of them are working together for the same goal. It's for Greece, but
Hmm.
Menon never said it was for Greece. He knew from the very beginning it was for Wakanda,
Yep.
and he couldn't share to Achilles exactly why he was there, um, until the very moment when you're right, where these stories about the war dogs is that they're sent out to find these artifacts, and so this is his mission to get the artifact, and the artifact is apparently a necklace uh,
Hmm.
worn by Helen of Troy, and the stone is vibranium, and when he
Yep.
gets it, what he had to do to get it, you're right. It was very tragic, and Achilles realized that he was being betrayed by this person who he thought was his brother. And he fought behind. They fought together for 9 years, and there were even men in his group who said, "Okay, well, this is an outsider. Why do you trust this man so much?" And Achilles stood up for him. And then to see what happened and what Memnon had to do to get the artifact, um, I felt that Memnon was actually the villain in this story, and that I guess it didn't sit well with me because I'm always thinking that it's the Wakandans are ones, like they're doing the right thing, and they're the heroes of their story. But in this case, he didn't feel like the hero. Like, was that intentional? Was that how you wanted Menon to portray?
Um, I didn't. The thing I think we were hoping for, and I hope we got close to it, was that Memnon was neither hero nor villain. That Memnon is a victim. That he is a victim of Wakanda's desire, at the risk of all else, for secrecy. That secrecy is at its core Wakanda's cardinal sin. Because one of the things we talked about very early on in the room, which we knew we were never going to get into, was, and it's Killmonger's point in the first Black Panther movie, which is, where were you? Where were you during the slave trade? Where were you when people were being roped into bondage and ferried across oceans? Like, you were here. You could have stopped all of it, but you didn't do anything. Your desire for privacy, your desire for secrecy, your belief that you could just be Wakanda and perfect, um, is your problem. And Killmonger, again, we've all had the debates. Was Killmonger right? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But it's fundamentally clear that Wakanda's inactivity is the thing that is always going to haunt them. So let's trace that all the way back to the beginning. Why are they so secrecy? Why are they so obsessed with keeping that particular secret? And if Memnon just said, "Hey man, I'm here for a thing that's in there. I got to bring it home to Wakanda." He can't even say the word Wakanda. Like, and so he is a man broken by his devotion to his country, to his home. And what is the cost of that? What's the price you pay for fidelity, for loyalty? And for Memnon, it was happiness. It was, to a certain degree, his soul. He gave everything to Achilles, um, and gets nothing in return, except you get to live a life back in Wakandan sun. But who are you now on the other side of that?
Yeah.
Are you still the same person you were when you left? And if only Wakanda had just said, "Hey man, you can tell anybody you want anything. Doesn't matter." Excuse me. When we get to the next episode, um, Lost and Found, it is abundantly clear. It's like, hey man, if you just told her what you needed, all of this gets, none of it happens. Everything's fine. But the desire to keep that secret will always be Wakanda's Achilles heel.
Nice one, Mark. I like that. That was very good.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get into episode 3.
Episode 3.
Yeah.
I think it was actually the best episode of the group. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It was definitely the most fun.
Yeah. So our main character, who's a war dog named Basha, attempted to steal the tongue from a vibranium dragon statue. So he just takes the whole thing because he can't get the tongue out. But he has no idea that he actually had a stowaway on his ship, and it's an iron fist. Whole fight ensues and everything.
Yes.
Eventually, she just kind of plucks the tongue out of the statue with no effort whatsoever.
Right. Exactly.
And they realize that if they just talked about it, everything would have been resolved.
Yeah, which is Mark's point. Yeah.
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 So, could you tell us a bit about the development of the story and how you brought Iron Fist into the episode?
Well, we knew we wanted to be in China. Excuse me, for a little bit of it. I mean, Todd is a massive martial arts fan. He's a practitioner. Like, he's all about it. Me growing up in New York in the 70s, in the beginning of the rise of kind of kung fu cinema and Bruce Lee and all of the sort of Five Deadly Venoms and Shaolin and all of that, the soup of the late 70s, early 80s in martial arts cinema. It was like, yeah, let's do a kung fu episode. This went through a lot of changes in the process. There was a version of it that only took place in China, that was just literally Basha's trying to break into a place and get a thing and then get out of, I think it was, I can't remember. I know we'd found the city name that would become Beijing over, hundreds of years. That was about to be overrun by the Mongol hordes. And so it was a ticking clock of, can this guy get out of this city that's about to fall with the artifact intact. And then we all got taken with the idea that, like, it's a little bit like the Troy thing. It's a little bit like, here's a city that's on the verge of falling and our guy's got to do a thing with an artifact. Like, is that too similar? Should we go to Wakanda? Like, wouldn't it be great if we could kind of peel back the curtain of what does Wakanda look like inside of it? What's the mundanity of Wakanda? And I think we had all fallen in love with Into the Spider-Verse. And there's that moment when Peter B. Parker and Miles Morales have stolen the computer out of, whatever, the Kingpin's company, and they've got to walk through the cafeteria, like the evil henchman cafeteria, to make it out. It was like, could we have a scene in Wakanda where, like, an outsider drops into the Wakandan cafeteria? And if every Wakandan is, we're not going to say like Bruce Lee, but like they're tougher than the average bear. And so what is it like then to just have this awesome fight scene in the middle of like the Wakandan cafeteria? And, China, okay, could we use an Iron Fist? Could we? Dear Marvel, can we have an Iron Fist? And I'm like, yeah, fine.
That was your Christmas wish.
Yeah, it's like it has to be better than the last time. So yeah, give it a go. And so then the idea of a kind of James Bondy spy who is so high on his own supply that he thinks he can't do any wrong, who inadvertently brings back with him, an Iron Fist, seemed like fun. It seemed like a bit of a romp. It seemed like this would have been a Eddie Murphy movie, or a Will Smith movie. We wanted him to be competent, but still fun. We didn't want him to be bumbling. We wanted Basha to still feel as if he was a formidable person, but can't fight an Iron Fist. Because nobody can fight an Iron Fist. And that's kind of how it began. Like, can we do James Bond? Like, yeah, let's do what kind of James Bond.
Yeah. And once again, you do so well with creating characters. It's not just about the action; it's about the characters, right? If you have interest in the characters, then that's half the battle. So, and you tell a backstory as to how Basha and the Iron Fist actually met, where I'm not sure if he was injured or hurt, and he's in the middle of the snow, and he's picked up and brought in, and she nurses him back to health. A relationship begins to form with the two of them, and that was his opportunity to actually take the tongue is what he wanted, but he couldn't get the tongue out of the dragon head, so he just decided to cut off the head and just run away, and no one would notice that the head is
Yeah.
gone. But she was well aware as to what was going on. She saw exactly what happened, and she got on his ship and just went after him. But
Hunted him down.
yeah, hunted him down. Yeah. So just talk about more about the relationship. Like, why did you want it to be this romantic relationship that is, forming, but it's actually just it's a smokescreen for the real mission for Basha to actually steal this vibranium.
I mean, I think we did find kind of we liked the idea that it was a Bond story, but also it was a Bond story where the Bond girl is as formidable as James Bond is. And Jirani as a character, we liked the name itself is a Cambodian name. It's not a Chinese name. And we like the idea of her being an outsider, of her also having come to Kunlun, and made a vast journey to get there, proved herself in front of the dragon and stole the heart of Xiaolong and all that stuff, like what you have to do to become an Iron Fist. But she was an outsider who came here and found a home. And we liked that she seduces Basha as much as he thinks he seduces her. That she likes this guy. Like, he's attractive. He landed on the doorstep. He's kind of broken. It's the broken sparrow of it all. Like, if I can fix him, maybe he'll, I see myself in him. And of course, he screws her over. She's unwilling to tolerate that. But we wanted banter. We wanted, a little bit of like, Nick and Nora Charles. We wanted that screwball comedy. We wanted Han Solo and Princess Leia, ultimately, is what we wanted. And can we present these two characters in a way that like legitimizes both of them? Neither of them are a victim and neither of them are the hero. But if they had only just had a conversation, which is, the core of almost every romantic comedy, which is, if you just said the thing, we wouldn't be here. And we like the thing being, I just need the tongue. And she would have been like, you can have the tongue. I don't care. Statue means stuff to us. The tongue can mean something to you. We can make all this go away. And we wanted to have fun with it. And the only way you can have fun with it is if Basha can be humbled a little bit, and if Jirani can be elevated a little bit by it, and if we could find a way to not have to have a Black Panther in it. Like, that was the other thing we were struggling with, which was, do we want to see a Black Panther Iron Fist fight? Like, yeah, we kind of do. It'd be fire, except once Black Panther gets involved, it's an international incident. Like, there's no sweeping it under the rug once, the King of Kings arrives. So, like, if we got to keep it small, if we got to keep it secret, if we have to explain how this Iron Fist ever leaves Wakanda, we can't have a Black Panther show up. But then that made that fight more fun to me, which is, it becomes improvisational. It becomes, what is in this gallery of artifacts that Basha can use? It's a Jackie Chan fight more than it is like, a superhero fight. And that became super fun.
And I like the way it ends. Well, we know Basha cares very much for Jirani, and he wanted to make sure that she was not harmed, that this was all a misunderstanding. And he said to her from the beginning, you're not going to leave out of here alive. You're not going to leave Wakanda alive. But then he understood, that the two of them cared for each other, and he had to figure out a way to get her off the country.
Mm-hmm.
We don't actually see it happen, but we see that there's a trap door where they go in and, get her out without anyone knowing. So I thought that was pretty cool. We didn't need to see her leaving, but we knew that they were going to get her to safety because Basha cares so much for Jirani.
He does. And there's a beat at the end of it, which I lifted wholesale from Beverly Hills Cop, which is when Ebo and Basha are busted by like the High Chancellor or whatever, and Basha just cooks up the Super Cop story.
Yeah,
which is like, you He was buying the Super Cop story. He just like, let me spin you the version of this that makes Ebo look great, that answers every question that the High Chancellor has, that makes me look okay, and that doesn't ever mention Jirani. Everybody gets to go home happy. Just let me tell this lie. In Beverly Hills Cop, Axel Foley tells the version of the Super Cop story. It's like, Super Cop story was working if you two didn't screw it all up. Okay. All right.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. And then we lead into the last episode, which was written by, again, Jeffrey Thorne. So there are two agents who are set to steal an axe in Ethiopia. Right. And then they're visited by a Black Panther from the future who tells them that they must put the axe back where they found it, or else Wakanda in 500 years would be destroyed. This was another. I really like this episode as well. I don't know how much input you had in creating this story idea. Can you tell us anything about this episode and what you enjoy about it?
Yeah, this episode probably took the longest in gestation, because it's the finale, and there's always a certain amount of wait to get a finale to feel good. Even though we decided that we weren't going to use a Black Panther in 103, because, as much as we wanted a Black Panther and Iron Fist fight, we didn't think it made sense. There was some like pressure internally, and by internally I just mean amongst the three writers and Todd. Like, do we have to deliver a Black Panther? Will an audience who comes to this show be disappointed if they don't get one? And so, yeah, so let's figure out a way to introduce a Black Panther in this show. And we always knew that it was never going to be T'Challa, because we were all reeling from the loss of Chadwick. It was still too fresh. We and it was, for all of the reasons, we knew it wasn't going to be that. So then what's this story, and how can we tie it in to events that an audience understands? And then we're like, hey, time travel's cool. Let's do time travel. Let's actually put some real import on that relic from Black Panther 1. Because, it's Killmonger goes to this museum, steals an axe. The axe doesn't seem to be important in any way. But what if it really is? What if it really was? And so we all got really, really just jazzed by that idea of like, let's invest this relic with some real story value, with some real in-world importance. And yeah, like, rather than taking a thing back to Wakanda, let's invert the drama and make it putting it back where it came from. Because it has to be there. And if it's not there, then Killmonger doesn't get it. If Killmonger doesn't get it, T'Challa doesn't open the kingdom. If the kingdom isn't open, then we get our butts kicked by Thanos. And then when this horde shows up, everything goes bad. Like, if without the Wakandans, we lose Endgame. And without, and if there's only half of Earth left, we're never going to be able to stand up against the incoming horde. And so all of those things like that become our fun science fiction brains. We're like, ooh, excellent. Back to the Future meets like Wakanda meets the Terminator. Let's go. And creating, a female Black Panther who was formidable and tech that felt magical, and also setting it in a place and a time that I had no previous knowledge of. Like, I didn't know there was an Italo-Ethiopian war in the turn of the century. Because America's public education system is not awesome about international events. And so it was an education for me as well, of like, oh, that happened. This is cool. Oh, this is a great place to set a story. All right, excellent. And yeah, Jeff knocked it out of the park, because it gives you everything you kind of want out of a time travel story. You get high stakes. You get literally the stakes of the universe, but it's more the stakes of these three characters all trying to do what they can do to save the place that they love.
Was it the original idea to have just 4 episodes for this series?
um, I think the idea was to have as many episodes as we thought worked. Um, Not to say that we were all like, let's do 12, because it's an expensive show. But it was always a limited number. It was always relatively small in the grand scheme of things. Um, I think that if there had been ideas that were so amazing that they merited reallocating resources, they might have entertained that. But I think that as if the only criticism of the show, the only valid criticism that I've seen is there's not enough of it, like, all right, well, I can live with that. Um, I wish there was more. I mean, we have all of history to play with, but I think as a limited exposure for Marvel's financial spend, like 4 episodes is good. Like you see what the show is. If you like the show, we can do more. You can crunch all you want. We'll make more, but
Good.
it'll just take time.
So that's good to know. Is Marvel open to doing more seasons?
We haven't heard that they're not.
Mm.
I think that if the viewership continues to remain high, if and the critical response has been overwhelming, there's been some review bombing on Rotten Tomatoes, but it always happens. That is the price of doing business,
Yep.
um, in brown media these days, where there's just going to find a reason to crap all over it. But it's all about the numbers. And if Marvel and Disney feel like the performance was high enough, there's there's a lot of arguments to do more, um, and it would be fun. It'd be fun. This was a good time.
Mm. Yeah. So what's coming up next in your schedule?
Well, right now I'm at work on Amazon's new God of War live action TV show, um, based on the video game from Santa Monica Studios. Um, we are deep in the middle of writing season one. I don't know when we're going to shoot it, but it's going to be soon because Amazon wants a TV show on the air, and that is swallowing all of my free time at the moment, all of
Mm.
my bandwidth. But it's been super fun. If you know anything about those games, it is a big sort of world full of gods and monsters and trolls and dragons and all the above. But it is also the story of a father and a son.
Yeah.
Also the story of a man hiding from his past, um, without ever realizing that that is an impossible task, and he is not John Wick. He cannot do the impossible task. Um, and so instead, he just has to face his own history and his own legacy, as it stares him in the face every day. So that plus giant dragons, seems like fun.
Nice. You never played that, right? Gods of War?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. Got you. Well, we're looking
Oh,
forward
you
to
should
that.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's. I mean, the only other thing that is immediately on the horizon is the Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra video game that I worked on at the same time that I worked on Eyes of Wakanda.
Ooh.
Um,
What's
yeah,
going on with
and so
that?
that is 1943, World War II, a very newly christened Captain America, um, plus um, T'Challa's grandfather, Azuri, as a Black Panther, set in occupied France against Hydra. So yeah, it's Black Panther versus Captain America versus Hydra,
Mm.
um, versus Nazis. Um, and I will always take the opportunity to punch Nazis in the face as Black Panther. It
Yeah.
is it is the most fun to do.
Is there
Um,
like an expected date for the game?
I believe the game is now first quarter 26, so
Wow, that's quite
probably
soon.
Yeah.
yeah, probably spring. I think.
We can totally play it.
I'm interested,
Um,
actually. I am
Yeah, me
interested in
too.
this game. This sounds very good. Yeah.
We should
yeah,
also
there's
play
there's a
Spider Man
couple
too.
trailers that are out there that broke. I
Yeah.
think last year. I know that they are putting the finishing touches on the game now. I was in the writers' room for that game. I and a few other writers, just working for Amy Hennig, who did all the Uncharted games. It was an education learning how to do it, but we got to play with Black Panther. We got to play with Captain America. We got to play with World War II. And that was a blast. That was a blast. So yeah, that'll be the very next thing that I'll have worked on that comes out.
Wonderful. Thank you. Marc, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. I'm we're a big fan of your work. I've been a fan longer, obviously, but continue to keep doing what you're doing. I mean, you know how to write good stories and good characters, and I'm going to be there, for whatever you put out. And I'm also a big fan of Fat Man Beyond, so I'm looking forward to seeing more episodes of that as well.
Well, thank you, fellas. I always appreciate it. This. If my voice tells you anything, it's I'm a little bit under the weather, but this was a bright spot in an otherwise bleak week of me struggling with a failing immune system. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
taking some time out of your day to talk to us.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you. We really appreciate that. Yeah.
My pleasure, fellas.
Thank you. Where can people find you?
If I'm anywhere on the internet, it is at Marc Bernardin. Marc with a C, all one word. Don't do much on the X anymore, but Blue Sky and Threads and Instagram are where I can reliably lurk and be found.
Where can people find us, Keith?
You can find us wherever you get your podcast. Socials are Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Fatherson Galaxy. Website, FatherSonGalaxy.com. Please check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/FathersonGalaxy, and our merch store, FathersonGalaxy.myspreadshop.com.
All right. Thank you. Once again, to our guest, Marc Bernardin. Congratulations once again on Eyes of Wakanda. We really enjoyed it. We wish there were more episodes, but if you had to have 4, you have to have 4 great episodes, and that's what you have here. So thank you so much once again.
Thanks, fellas. Y'all have a good day.
All right.
Yeah, you too.
You too. And feel better.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching or listening. Until next time, take care.
And we will see you again.